Hi. There have been people in my life over the years who have inspired me like shining avatars in a dark world. And some of these people are names that everyone knows, like Nelson Mandela. When I think of a great example of a man who forgave his oppressors and came out and modeled a better way of being human to a nation, it was Nelson Mandela. I think of Martin Luther King, and I say this with all sincerity. I believe that Martin Luther King was the greatest, Martin Luther King Jr. was the greatest leader of the 20th century. And when I look at him and how he followed the core message of Jesus of loving God and loving neighbor, and how that even he was also impacted by Islam, I look at that man and I say that man is a shining avatar in a dark world who inspired me. Mahatma Gandhi, what can we say of Mahatma Gandhi? Whether you love him or hate him, the man modeled nonviolence, resistance, and he used Jesus as his example. He did. People don't realize that. He spent 2 hours a day studying the Sermon on the Mount, Mahatma Gandhi did, and he influenced Martin Luther King. And I look at these guys because I love Jesus. I'm a Jesus man or Isa man. And I look at these and I say, these are shining avatars in a dark world that inspired my life. But you know what? There are a lot of shining avatars in a dark world that no one knows their name. And some of them are just ordinary folk that came into my world, that inspired my life and touched my heart and changed me in ways I will be forever grateful for. And one of those shining avatars was a humble man. I will call him Steve. That's not his real name because you know how it is on the internet. If you get people's real names and all this stuff, people, think weird things happen and people go crazy. But he was just an ordinary guy named Steve. And he left one of the deepest impressions on my soul, and I will never forget him and what he did in my life. Well, as you know, I shared with you in the last 2 or 3 videos that after I met Omar, and Omar changed my life, and I went from being an Islamophobe to loving Muslims, and I figured now that I've had this transformation, what do I do with it? We formed an intentional community. You can call it a missional. I don't mean missionary. I mean missional peace community or peace, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, of about 18 to 20 people. And Steve joined that group. And that community, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again because I'm slow and I'm sure you're slow. You say, what was this community about? This community, the DNA of it was to love God with all of our heart, to love our neighbors ourselves, and to treat other people the way we want to be treated. And if we find enemies along the way, let's do everything we can to make them our friends. And then we had 4 practices that we used over and over again to live out that message. One was become good friends with Muslims. And I mean authentic friends without a hook. Eat together. And I said we're not friends unless we're eating together and our children are playing together. Explore faith together, not to debate or to convert. I've never had to charge from a Muslim that I've ever tried to convert. To explore faith together as friends. And then 4, do something good together in your community for the common good. Now let me tell you something. I'm going to say something right now before I move forward on this. And some will get mad at me. But if you call yourself a Muslim and you're a Christian or a Jew, and you're just, all you think about is being a Muslim, Christian, or Jew, and you can't work with Christians, and you can't work with Jews, and you can't work with Muslims in your community, it's bullshit. Your religion's bullshit. Okay? I'm just saying it right now. Because if your faith does not lead you to love your neighbors yourself and treat other people the way you want to be treated, and to make peace with your enemies, become an atheist. It'd be better to become an atheist. Okay? All right. That's my raging. I'm letting that go now. I just needed to say that just for a moment. So that was what our community was about. Well, one day, this guy named Steve, he came and said, hey, I love what you're doing, and I want to join your community. And then he asked me this question. He goes, how can I get involved with what you're doing? Well, I never told people what to do, so I'd always say to them, what can you do? All right, you want to join our community? What can you do? Now, my philosophy on peacemaking is this. If you come to me and say, Jeff, I want to be a peacemaker and I want to work with you, you know what I say? I'm always going to ask you, what is it you can bring to the table? And here's my philosophy. Write it down. Put it on a wall, okay? Because I'm a simple man. Here it is. Take the gifts, the natural gifts that God has given you and use them for peace, okay? I know, before I talk about Steve, I'm going to shift over a moment. I know of a lady who is a hairdresser. She cuts hair, and she loved doing that. And she made a lot of Muslim friends. And she noticed that a lot of the Muslim ladies had nowhere to go to get their hair fixed. Because, it was just because a lot of the shops you go to are mixed. You have men and women together. And she asked her husband, she said, "Husband, can I take the basement and make it into a hair salon? And I want to focus on Muslim women, and that be my primary business niche. And that way they can come and put down their hijabs and literally let their hair down, and we can talk and have fun together." She was a hairdresser, and she loved Muslims so much, she turned a part of her house into a shop to cut and style the hair of Muslim women. She took her gifts and made them for peace. She took her gift of fixing hair and made it a glorious sacrifice to God for peace. So here Steve comes to me. "What can I do?" And I said, "What do you do, Steve?" And I said, he goes, "I like to grow things. I'm a gardener. I love to grow food. He was a good gardener. He is a good gardener. Later, he went on to become a master gardener, okay? He didn't study under Obi-Wan Kenobi, but it was close. And he said, "I like to grow things. I like to hunt, and I like to fish." Now, how do you take gardening, hunting, and fishing and use those gifts for peacemaking, okay? But that's what he did. I said, take those things and use them for the glory of God. Well, one day, and I'm changing the names, he met a couple named Ahmed and Miriam, okay? Ahmed was from Morocco. Ahmed and Miriam were. They had no Christian friends, okay? So they met Steve, and after they met Steve and his wife, they realized that Steve and his wife aren't out to convert them or hurt them. They met, anyway. So he said, "Steve, what do you do?" He goes, "I like to hunt, fish, and garden." He goes, "Oh, I would like to learn those things." So Steve taught Ahmed how to hunt and fish and garden and become a master gardener. And they got together every weekend. That was his peace thing. That was it. Become good friends, eat together, grow food together, hunt together. That's what he did. And I remember Steve could go out, and now I know some shooting animals is offensive to some people, but hunting is still a thing. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. So, but Steve would literally eat everything he hunted. Okay, so that's good. So Steve would go out and he could shoot a deer, find a deer real quick. But Ahmed was having some trouble. So Steve sent out an email to our little community and said, "Pray for Ahmed that he'll get a deer." That he can find it. Well, one day Ahmed was able to get a deer, and he did. And everybody was so happy for him. And he taught Ahmed how to garden and do all these wonderful things. And one day Ahmed gave Steve a hug and said, "My own father never taught me these things. He never taught me this. Doesn't mean his father is basic. He just never did this. And you're a Christian and you did this for me?" And he goes, "You're my brother now." So they went from being a Muslim and a Christian to being brothers on the path together. Amen. Well, Steve didn't stop there. There were a group of students from another country. Now, in America, if you come to school in America to get advanced degrees, you're either rich or your government has sent you. So we had this group. I won't mention the country, from a Muslim country. They came over. There's a group of them, and so for 4 years, we had this wonderful relationships. They were getting masters and PhDs together. And they came to him and said, "Steve, we want to learn how to hunt. We want to learn how to fish." So Steve taught them how to hunt and fish and do all. Oh, it was amazing. Took them on trips, on ventures. And Steve came from kind of a family that had a lot of wealth. And so other people found out and said, "Steve, what are you doing? This is sad and funny at the same time." And said, "What are you doing? You're giving these Muslims guns to hunt." He goes, "You're going to turn them into terrorists." And you know what? Steve paid no attention to them. No attention at all. And they had fun together. And so some of these Muslims from other countries that didn't get to learn how to hunt, they said, "You taught us how to fish. You taught us to do these things." So the only regret is we didn't learn the art of hunting the deer. But most of them did. It was just a beautiful thing. It really was. And I think of one of the local imams in Raleigh at that time. He's moved on now. Steve wanted to have a gathering in his neighborhood at big pond. He wanted to have a gathering where Muslims and Christians could come and fish together. And this imam loved the fish. I've never seen a man love the fish like this guy did. He loved it. So here, I got sick that day and couldn't come. And so here this imam is. They said he was throwing the lines in to the fishing lines into the water and quoting the hadith. And they had fun together. It was amazing. Steve took these simple gifts he had and used them to the glory of God, and it brought joy to the world. Well, in our little missional community, or peace community, we all didn't agree on political issues. I felt like George Bush should be tried for war crimes. Steve felt like he was a hero. I voted for Obama. He did not vote for Obama. And we had to sit down and talk through these issues. And instead of it polarizing or splitting our community, we agreed. You know, we agree on the core message of Jesus. We agree on the 4 practices. And we agree that loving our Muslim neighbor is more important than our politics. It's more important than our differences. And buddy, it changed everything for me. And not only did Steve teach Muslims and Christians to do these things, I mean, Muslims how to hunt and fish, he taught me how to grow things. I had my own garden in Raleigh, and I couldn't do it. He came over and showed me how to do it, helped me set it up, and he was a shining avatar of light in a dark world for me. Now you'll notice on the thumbnail, you see a picture of this man hugging an imam. That's Steve. That's not his real name. But he's hugging this imam. And people often ask me, Jeff, what's your end game with your video? What all this peace thing, is your end game to get people to be Christian? Is it what? No. You know, you'll never find one Muslim in all my journeys that's ever said, Jeff, try to convert me to Christian. You won't find one. But I want you to look at that thumbnail. Thumbnails, are important. This is Steve hugging an imam that he invited to fish in his neighborhood. And people say, what's your end goal? What's your end game? I said, you see that picture? That's it. A Muslim and a Christian man or woman, whoever, hugging each other. My end game is love. I can say that with integrity and purity and joy. That's how I'm following Jesus in this world. And I'm trying to be a little light in a dark world. So if you want to follow the path and be a peacemaker, you don't have to go to the UN. You don't have to go to get a PhD in peacemaking and conflict resolution. All you have to do is take your gifts God's given you. If you're a baker, use it for peace. God will show you. Allah will show you how to do it. If you are a hunter, a fisher, He'll show you. If you grow things, if whatever it is that God's given you, He will use that for peace if you'll let Him. I look forward to seeing you next week for I Follow the Path. God bless you. Oh, be sure to like, comment, and share this if you want to do it with others, okay? And also, on my page, you can download my free ebook. You can also go to my website, for my blogs, if you're interested in that also. God bless you, and see you soon.